Laura Blumenfeld, a former senior advisor at the U.S. State Department's Israeli-Palestinian negotiating team. She gave me her analysis of President Trump's approach to negotiations.
The two men today that we saw just standing before the crowd, Marco Rubio and Prime Minister Netanyahu, although they come from different countries, they look like they're working for the same man, and that's Donald Trump. And we've been asking ourselves here at home in America, and also I'm sure you have abroad, is can Trump do that? I mean, one thing that he's certainly done is unified folks. The Middle East, the Arab countries are now unified in opposition to his Gaza plan. Europe, of course, is coming together to see what they can do about his plan for Ukraine. But it is what a lot of folks say is his maximalist position that he takes from real estate. We thought it was a metaphor, this kind of gangs of New York real estate approach to carving up the world and having your territory. But, we may not take it literally, but we should take his approach seriously because he seems intent on following through.
Yeah, so what should we understand then about Marco Rubio's, the Secretary of State's trip? He's asked Arab leaders to present sort of alternative proposals. What do you think they could look like?
Well, I think the diplomacy is very important, and I think we also shouldn't forget the hard power that's behind it and listen to what Secretary of Defense was talking about in Brussels when he said that, you can talk about values, but you can't shoot values, you can't shoot flags, and it's all about hard power. So it was good to see Rubio arrive by air in Israel, but I can tell you that the Israelis were probably even more excited about what arrived by sea, which are those 2,000-pound bombs that were being withheld by the Biden administration. They're now in Israel, and I think that will inform a lot of the next steps because, that kind of threat of power, I think the Arab nations, certainly Gaza and Lebanon and Iran, understand that Israel doesn't just bark, they bite. And that, according to Trump and Netanyahu, is all that you need to have your message clear in the Middle East. So I think that, to answer your question, the Arab states are going to quickly come up with a counter proposal. Right now, Trump is using Netanyahu almost as his enforcer, his trigger man. And I think that the Arab nations, there's nothing more motivating than having a gun to your head. And there will be a counter proposal for that Gaza land grab.
And where does Iran sit in all of this? We know that Secretary of State Marco Rubio has also singled them out. Netanyahu mentions them all the time. What's their role, and do you see any possibility of escalation with Iran?
Right. So Iran, I think, is the most interesting question because it's the point of friction potentially between Israel and the United States. If you notice the way that the two men spoke, the two leaders at the beginning of this press conference or the prepared remarks, Netanyahu said, number one, our most important issue is Iran. And it's not just Iran going nuclear, but it's also their aggressive, malign acts in the region. It took Marco Rubio it was like number 3 or 4. For Rubio, for the United States, it was getting the hostages out because there's among the hostages still being held is an American, and it's America first. Rubio's second point was about the Gaza plan the day after, which is an American kind of taking possession of Gaza. That's an America first priority. Iran came third, and he only talked about preventing Iran from gaining a nuclear weapon. There was no mention of a military strike. We know that America favors a deal over military action. Israel would probably prefer to, take their knockout blow now that they have the opportunity. And there was no conversation about regime change, which I'm sure Israel would prioritize over keeping that grand Ayatollah where he can always be a threat and rebuild tomorrow.